Thank you, Victor. Thank you for that welcome. Доброго дня. It's great to be here with you in Kiev. The last time I visited this city, I was a student taking a year out between school and university. It was 1985. I'm guessing many of you weren't born then, and I have to admit a lot of things have changed here in Kiev since then. So perhaps a more appropriate phrase is long time no see, though I don't think I'll attempt to say it in Ukrainian. When I told my 13-year-old daughter I was going to Kiev, I think she thought it was something to do with the Eurovision Song Contest that you're hosting in May. But I assured her, and I can assure you, that I may be doing many different things now I'm no longer Prime Minister, but singing isn't one of them. I want to start by paying tribute to Victor Pinchon. Victor, the work that you do through your foundation is changing lives and saving lives. You created one of the most magnificent contemporary art galleries in Europe, which I visited this morning. I know from our experience of how Tate Modern draws tourists to London that your gallery is a huge opportunity for Kiev. Your neonatal units will enable children who may not otherwise have survived birth to lead fulfilling lives across your country. There is the annual Yalta European Strategy Conference, which attracts leaders and commentators from across the globe and ensures that the world appreciates your challenges. And there are your educational programs, like Zavtra UA and Worldwide Studies, which are helping to nurture the young leaders who will be vital to the future of Ukraine, including, I hope, many of the people here in this room today. And that is what we are here to talk about, Ukraine's future. The title of this lecture is Ukraine's Place in a Changing World. And there's no doubt that after the elections of 2016, there's a huge debate taking place about the future of all our economies, societies, and political systems. With the election of Donald Trump as US President, some of the post-war certainties are under question. What will be the status of NATO, the role of the United Nations, or the place of the World Trade Organization? I would argue that these things have helped to guarantee our prosperity and our security for decades, yet they are being called into question. My own view is clear. We should fight for the things that have delivered peace and prosperity. Democracy, the rule of law, free enterprise and free trade, global institutions and rules that have served us well. But let me start this lecture by making something very clear. We may be facing these new questions, and some of the certainties may be changing, but Ukraine's place as a fully independent, sovereign European nation should not change. You are a full member of the United Nations. You are a current member of the UN Security Council too. And people sometimes forget that because of the suffering of Ukraine in the Second World War, you had a special status and were signatories, founding members, if you like, of the United Nations at its very beginning. And you should be treated as a fully independent and sovereign nation state. In fact, there could not be a more apt place in which to restate that fact than here in Kiev. Because your city was a hero city of the resistance in the Second World War. It was the heart of peaceful protest in the Orange Revolution. It was the site of the Euromaidan in 2014. And it remains a global symbol of freedom, democracy, and independence today. The world knows that Ukraine has endured great suffering. I will never forget reading about life between the twin evils of Stalin and Hitler in Tim Snyder's brilliant book, Bloodlands, or learning about that dark chapter of European history, Holodomor. But having overcome such adversity, and having shown such a deep desire for autonomy, it is time for Ukraine to take its rightful place in the world as a successful country that charts its own path. That is what self-determination means. Europe suffered 2 world wars and tens of millions of dead because of attempts to redraw its borders through force. With all that history, after all the lessons we've learned, it seems odd that we should have to make the argument all over again that this shouldn't be able to happen all over again. But after you are the victims of unprovoked aggression by Russia, we do. We must stand together and make the case anew that it is down to Ukraine and Ukraine alone to determine its future path. And that is why I'm delighted to stand here today to make that argument as a proud supporter of your country. Not only am I a supporter of your country in principle, I'm also a supporter in practice. I'm proud of the things that I did when I was Prime Minister to help Ukraine. When Russia took illegal action in Ukraine, completely flouting international law, we brought together our European allies to agree the appropriate sanctions. We used international meetings like the G7, G20 and NATO to help raise Ukraine's profile. We coordinated work between Europe and the United States to ensure action on both sides of the Atlantic. We provided UK humanitarian assistance to the Ukraine, and we supported your military capability by training thousands of members of Ukrainian armed forces and giving them helmets, clothing, tents and other resources, along with vital battlefield medical training that has saved lives and is saving lives today. Indeed, there are Ukrainian soldiers on the contact line in eastern Ukraine right now using UK equipment and UK expertise. I am proud of that support, and I salute the work that your armed forces have had to do. But diplomatic and military support are not enough. When I was Prime Minister, I recognised that we needed not only to support your economy, but to help with the steps that you're taking to improve governance as well. I put corruption and 3 of its solutions, fairer taxes, freer trade, and greater transparency, at the heart of the international agenda. And I set up the Good Governance Fund, which is giving expert advice and assistance to Ukraine and its neighbours to help fund stronger institutions. I also recognised that it wasn't just military aggression that you were confronted with, but an attempt to subvert your institutions, your country and your democracy. You need to defeat the propaganda that you face. So we have helped to strengthen local radio stations' ability to provide unbiased public information. You need to ensure that your citizens feel a stake in democracy. So we've undertaken measures to help them become more involved in local government. You need to make certain that the conflict in the East is properly monitored, so it cannot be misrepresented by Russia. So we've supported the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission. Indeed, the UK is its 2nd largest contributor. All this builds on what I know is a deep kinship between our 2 parliaments, those institutions that lie at the heart of both our national lives. I'm proud to say that there is no parliament more comprehensively engaged at every level with our Ukrainian friends than the UK Houses of Parliament. We regularly have British MPs visiting the Rada and Ukrainian members visiting the Palace of Westminster. We have ministerial visits. We even have buddy schemes linking our MPs so that they can learn from each other. From all of this, it is clear that our country's bilateral relationship is deep, it is strong, and it is pragmatic. And although I didn't make it to Ukraine when I was Prime Minister, and I regret that, I am here now, and it is a great pleasure. And let me say something that needs to be said up front. Of course, there is more that needs to be done by us and by you, but there are times when it's right to stand back